archaeology at the submerged cave of the Yucatan Peninsula. Just in case you're here mistakenly, you get to go. Underwater caves are one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, environments to do archaeology in any case. But when you're working with deep time like you do in Paleo-Indian archaeology, it's even worse, because you have all the chemical changes that have taken place in the complex chemical soup that these cave systems offer. So what we're going to be doing today is talking about kind of introducing you to the work that's being done in those caves, and then exploring the kinds of challenges and the way we're meeting the challenges in two sites. One is Lamina, which is an ochre quarry deep inside a cave system. And the other one is Hoyo Negro, which is a natural trap also deep inside a cave system. And so that's what those talks are going to be about. This is here because there will be human skeletons shown, and the SAA has asked us to let you know that. Both of our Mexican colleagues with the National Institute of Anthropology and History have skeletons included in their talks. They are also of native Mexican heritage, so they got to do that anyway. But I just thought this would be fun. So Dominique is going to be doing the introductions, and we do have time for questions afterwards if you're able to stay as long as 11:45. Sammy? Yeah, and the lavalier mic.
Okay, so Jen, if you can bring up Helena's talk real quick. Great, welcome everyone. Our first presentation today is by Helena Barba, Diana Arano Recio, Abud Pisa, Germán Yáñez, and Gabriel León, entitled Underwater Cultural Heritage in the Karst Systems of the Yucatan Peninsula: The Role of the Atlas of Caves and Cenotes from the Subdirección de Arqueología Subacuática del Instituto Nacional de Antropología Historia. And Helena was not able to join us today, unfortunately, due to short-sighted immigration policies in the U.S. But we're happy to receive her video that she sent with a sort of auto-translation feature. So we'll go ahead and get that started, and I'll turn on the lights.
In the karst system of the Yucatan, underwater cultural heritage in the karst system of the Yucatan Peninsula, the role of the Atlas of Caves and Cenotes, says INA. The National Institute of Anthropology and History, INA, through the Vice Directorate of Underwater Archaeology, SAS, is developing the project Underwater Archaeological Atlas of Cenotes, floated and semi-floated caves, and other continental bodies of water in the Mexican Republic. Its objective is the protection, conservation, research, dissemination, and enhancement of underwater cultural heritage in inland waters, in accordance with Mexican legislation and the UNESCO 2001 Convention of the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. This article aims to give an overview of the heritage recorded in the karst system of the Yucatan Peninsula, the diversity of the context, and the conservation factors that affect and/or protect it. The Yucatan Peninsula is a plain of calcareous sedimentary rock with horizontal strata and massive limestone which was submerged during the Cretaceous period 145 million years ago. This is widely documented, and as an example of its material evidence, we have marine fossils, including ammonites, sharp teeth, and even fossil imprints in rock inside caves and cenotes. 65 million years ago, the impact of a meteorite known as a Mayan bullet and the permeability of the calcareous solid flavor erosive process derived from atmospheric and biological agents, which gave rise to the formation of karst systems. The modeling of these formations resulted from the dissolution of rocks, gypsum, limestone, dolomite, and halite by chemical corrosion, degradation that produces geological depressions generated by weathering. In addition, there are fracture zones where these cavities have developed: the Cenotes Ring, the Puc and Ticul mountain range, the Holbox fracture, the Ex-Can R, and the Rio Hondo fault. Towards the late Pleistocene, the northern hemisphere was affected by the decrease in temperatures delivered from several events. This landscape motivated various megafauna species, carnivorous and herbivorous, to roam the territory in search of food and water found in the few surface aquifers and aguadas that formed during the rainy season. During severe droughts, they penetrated the interior of caves in search of water for their survival, becoming trapped in pits and live-bearing thin passages. Hominids with similar behaviors and following the animals also entered this system to obtain, in addition to water, raw materials such as stone to make tools for hunting and grinding for construction material, extraction of ochre, as well as for shelter, clothing, rituals, or even to dye. 10,000 years ago before present, the climate changed again. The polar ice caps melted and rainfall and sea level gradually increased, flooding cavities and forming subway aquifers while the coastline was reconfigured. When the karst system were flooded, the skeletons of those animals, women and men, that entered the caves towards the end of the Pleistocene were submerged until today, forming obscure archaeological contexts that currently provide us with evidence mainly about their modus vivendi and taxonomy. An adequate in situ archaeological record can provide excellent information on the formation and transformation of the sites through time and thus further understand the climate changes. As an example, we can mention the case of the Hoyo Negro project, a site documented through the structure from motion photogrammetric technique on the Viscor 3D platform between 7,000 and 2,500 before Christ. The evidence derived from the identified human presence, stone alignments, petroglyphs, and rock paintings indicates that the inhabitants of the Yucatan Peninsula used to semi-floated caves and drive caves from the northern highlands to the southern highlands as part of their activity areas for shelter, food and clothing, production for protection, as well as rituals. Sites in the Cook Highlands stands out mainly the Longtooth Cave and in the Tikal mountain range in the Huachadí Miramar and Xtaculviljunanan caves. During the Preclassic period, Maya groups chose the salter near bodies of water which influenced the pattern of human settlements. Some settlements began their development by locating their sites near rivers and lakes, such as the case of the sites located in the Soconusco zones on the Pacific coast of Chiapas and Guatemala, the highlands and the Motagua zone, as well as around flood zones in the Petén and the Mirador Basin. In the southern highlands and lowlands, villages choose strategic points close to surface water sources. In the central lowlands, with frequent flooding, efficient systems were developed to capture, supply, and dispose of excess rainwater, such as the one identified in Exna or the Aguado system of Calakmul and Oshpemul, whose information is important for understanding the changes in climate during pre-Hispanic times. The panorama in the northern lowlands was different. Not having enough surface water sources, the population were supplied from the aquifer through open cenotes, wells, and sky holes, cenotes caves, aguadas, rejolladas, and cenotes that do not reach the water table. For example, the first constructive stage of settlements such as Tzirichaltún, Maní, Comchen, Toho, Izamal, San Manuel, and Joxonot were related to the proximity to these karst bodies. During the Classic period, periods of low water levels have been reported with a relatively dry climate and extreme drought periods. In this scenario, the access and control of water through the construction of wells and subway cisterns, chultunes, also motivated some population to become cities of first and second order, among them Calakmul, Uxmal, Cabá, Chichen Itza, San Francisco, or San Andres. The marks in the rock of the cenotes are excellent markers of the changes in the aquifer's water level of the Yucatan Peninsula. Among the archaeological evidence linked to the change in these levels is discovering a monoxide canoe located inside a cavity in the San Andres cenote. The small cave that houses it is directly associated with an imprint on the southwest wall of the main cenote of this site, indicating the highest water level during this period 5 meters below the current one. Likewise, for example, is in the site of Sisila in the Chene zone. Actual dune has been recorded that dried up at the end of the Terminal Classic and was reused for the deposit of offerings. It is important to note that most of the evidence recorded in the cenotes of northern Yucatan corresponds to the terminal phase of this period. During the post-classic, in the so-called medieval climate optimum or medieval climate anomaly, an extremely hot period in the North Atlantic region gave way to the Little Ice Age. This caused prolonged drops as well as fluctuations in the aquifer level, so the access and control of water throughout the construction of cisterns, chultunis, as well as the use of cenotes, wells, aguadas, rejolladas, and seasonal sartenejas was fundamental for the political, economic, and social control of sites. The conservation of archaeological elements is determined as much by the conditions of the environment as by their constituent materials. Both define the evidence we can find and thus define potential search areas and even, with small samples, infer about what has disappeared. Among the degradation factors that influence the conservation of underwater cultural heritage in karst systems are intrinsic and extrinsic. In recent decades, the overpopulation and economic activities developed in the Yucatan Peninsula have made the anthropogenic factor a major concern, as the aquifers, as well as the paleontological and archaeological evidence, are the most vulnerable to any activity that occurs on the surface, putting in imminent danger the destabilization of these bodies of water and therefore the cultural heritage immersed in them. In summary, within the framework of the Atlas Project, 109 paleontological, archaeological, and historical contexts have been recorded, 25 corresponding to the late Pleistocene, one at the beginning of the Holocene, 21 to the pre-classic, 48 to the classic, 45 to the post-classic, 11 with evidence from the Viceroyalty period, and 6 from the 19th century. In addition, 59 are located in cenotes, 17 inside floated caves, 25 in semi-floated or dry caves, 2 in saltwater rivers, 1 in spring, 2 in rejolladas, and the other more in a lagoon. Some sites, mainly the cenotes, have archaeological materials from different periods. The study of extrinsic and intrinsic factors of both archaeological evidence and context is essential for their understanding and safeguarding. In this scene, the use of new technologies for the recording of sites strengthens in situ conservation as a priority option, generating tools for research, monitoring, and accessibility. The protection, conservation, research, dissemination, and enhancement of paleontological, archaeological, and historical context located inside caves and cenotes is of vital importance, as they are unique and unrepeatable spaces that can provide us with valuable information about changes in the landscape, climate, and development of past societies from the holistic viewpoint. In this sense, the Atlas Project plays a transcendental role in the organization of the diverse actors and projects, but mainly in the safeguarding of Mexico's underwater cultural heritage.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Helena.